This is my home studio. It was originally a bedroom. It was actually the master bedroom, but I commandeered it for a studio. The master bedroom is just about the right size for a portrait studio, and plus it's close to the front door, so people don't have to traipse through the house if they're coming for a photo setting, and it's real close to a bathroom if people want to change their clothes. So it makes for a good place for a studio. It also doubles as a gallery, has some of my favorite photographs hanging in here, and also have seamless paper, background paper on rollers. The background paper comes in long rolls and a variety of colors, more colors than you can imagine. I just use primarily green, black, and white. The green is mainly for using chroma key effects with video, or if you want to use a virtual effect, virtual background with Zoom meetings, things like that, green is a good way to go. For most photography, I'd use black or white. If you want to cut out the background to make composites or things like that, the white is real easy to do with Photoshop. For most portrait settings, I like to use the black background because it makes it easy to change the shade. Because using a little backlight like this, by how bright it is, it makes the background go from black to fairly light gray just by changing the amount of light and position of the light on the background. So these are on rollers, and I'm just going to pull the black one down. And these are long paper rolls, so you can either just pull it down to the floor, and if it gets dirty, you just cut it off and throw it away and keep going. Or you can roll it all the way out if you want it totally seamless and you want to do full-length pictures with no background at all. This is the way to go. You just pull it out and tape it to the floor, and you're ready to go. Now let's talk a little bit about flash units. Basically, this is just electronic flash, but sometime in the last few decades, we started calling these strobe units. Strobe, electronic flash, the same thing, but usually if it's a self-contained studio type thing, we call it a strobe, and if it goes on top of the camera, they call it a speed light. It's actually all the same thing. It's just what words are using nowadays. But this just sits on a stand, and buy these light stands, anywhere you buy lights, they usually come with a stand, or they may not. And this is just a flash head. This happens to be a Alien Bees, made in Nashville, Tennessee. And this little thing, hang on, this is the AC cord. And this little thing is actually a receiver, a radio receiver. And on my camera has a transmitter. So when I fire the shutter, this detects the signal and fires the flash unit. If I'm using more than one head, more than one flash unit, like for a background or a second light, the other flash units are set for a slave, they call it, which means that when they see this one fire, the other lights fire along with it. So you just turn this on, and this has a modeling light in it, and this is just a 100-watt light bulb, and it allows you to see what you're doing. Also tells you it's on, and it varies with the intensity with the control on the back of the light. So I can turn it up as high as low as I want. That's how that works. This camera here is my Pentax, just a digital SLR. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. It's a digital SLR, and this is the little transmitter I was telling you about. This goes in the hot shoe of the camera, and then fires the flash. So this sends out a signal to the flash unit. You want to, you can just use a cord. You can get a flash cord that plugs into the flash and plugs into the camera, but you have to have a camera that has a PC contact. PC is the name for the contact. It's called point contact that fires the flash. One of the differences between a professional quality camera and a consumer camera is that the consumer camera probably isn't going to have a flash contact. You do have to have a hot shoe, however, to use the radio control. Let me show you how it works. I'm just going to turn this on quickly and turn the camera on. Now, you have to have a camera that you can set to manual exposure, because automatic isn't going to work with a studio flash. This particular camera has to have an X setting, which is for flash units. But if it don't have X, set to M. Shutter speed has to be at whatever the camera manufacturer told you it needs to be for flash, which is typically 125th, 150th. On a Pentax, to set to X, it automatically goes to the right shutter speed. Set the white balance to daylight or flash. It's basically the same. You don't want it automatic because it'll be trying to read the room light, but you want it to be set for the flash, which is daylight balance. And then the f-stop, you set according to how much light your flash units put out. And if you want, you can measure it with a flash meter, but you don't really need to. You just take a couple of shots and find out if it's too light or too dark. And once you get it zeroed in, you know, if you're always in the same studio setting or using the same lights, it's going to be the same. So it's not that big a deal. I have this one set about, f11. So I'll show you how it works. It has a flash on transmitter. So when I fire a picture, it fires a flash. That's all there is to it. So let's take some pictures. Okay, I've asked my wife Louise to join us so we can take a few pictures. I have my Pentax here, and I'm just going to use one light without any reflector or anything. We'll see what that looks like. And the kind of a rule of thumb is that you have it a little bit above your head and then like at a 45 degrees. So this is with one light. And I have the camera going to set it ISO 200 at f14. We'll see what that looks like. Okie dokie. Okay, it's a little bit hot, so I'm going to turn the ISO down to 100 and up to f16, and that should do it. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, Louise, why don't you turn about 45 degrees? There you go, just like that. By the way, the first person who ever said, turn 45 degrees to your right and tip your head down just a little bit was Leonardo da Vinci talking to Mona Lisa. So this is kind of a Mona Lisa pose. Here we go. Let's see what that does. Okay, you see it's pretty contrasty. So what we're going to do is modify this light. And as I mentioned earlier, to make the light softer, you need to make it bigger. And the easiest way to do that is to use a light modifier like an umbrella. And this, basically what this does, when I point the light into the umbrella, the light source becomes this size instead of this size. So let's try that. I'm going to have to turn the light around. Around like this. Same place, I just turned the light around. This makes the light much bigger. Of course, when I bounce the light into the umbrella, you lose a couple stops. So I need to turn the camera back to ISO 200 and maybe drop it down to f11. See what that does. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, a little bit better, but not. It's still a little contrasty. I'm going to move the light a little bit more around to the front. See what difference that makes. Okay, not bad at all. Now, as you can see, the background is black. But what I want to do is have it a little bit lighter. Now black background works well with Louise because her hair is not dark. But if you have somebody with real dark hair, you need to have a lighter background. The easiest way to do that is to turn the backlight on. And by adjusting the light and the brightness of the light, I can control the background. So let's see what happens with the background light. See, the background is much bright. In fact, I probably have the background too light now. Let's try it a little darker. Oops. Okay, here we go. Oh yes, much better. Now, because it's still kind of shadowy on one side, I'm going to add another light, and I have another flash head just like that one, and I'm also going to add the umbrella on this side as well. I happen to have two umbrellas. Now I'm going to leave this light at full power. In fact, I'm going to move it back around a little bit like this. And I have the other umbrella about the same place, but I have it on half power. So it'll still have a little bit of a shadow on that one side. Okay, I'm going to turn it back up a little bit more just to show you the difference. It's actually, I had it on eighth power. Let's try it up to about a quarter and see what that does. Okay. Much better. That's kind of more, getting to more to what we had in mind. So I have this one at full power, quarter power. And I can move the lights around and get quite a bit different effect. And since I have the light that's on full power is called the main light or key light, and then the other one is called a fill for obvious reasons. So let's get a little more of an angle, turn this one up just about half, and see what that looks like. Very cool. So, as you can see, just moving the lights a little bit makes a lot of difference. Got two lights, a main light, a fill, and a background light. Now, another thing you can do, if you're so inclined, you can have four lights. Use one as a hair light to kind of up here and shine on somebody's head. That was real fashionable a few years ago. Now it kind of looks like their hair is on fire, so I kind of quit doing that. But that was a big deal for a while, but you feel free to try it. So another thing you can do is change I'm going to turn the background light down just a little bit more. Bring this light around a little bit more, and let's see what that does. Okay, here we go. There we go. Pretty neat. I like it. Louise, why don't you turn the other way? And usually in a portrait setting, what I do is I start with them looking one way, and I take a couple pictures and move the lights if I like, and then have them go the other way and do the same thing again. So let's see what that does. Pretty good. Cool. So that's the basic idea, just the three lights, a fill light, or main light, a fill, and a background light. And like if you want to use four lights or more, you can. And there are all kinds of light modifiers to make the light harsher or softer. And the whole idea is you just experiment, find out what you like, find your style. Often you can identify photographers just by the way they light things, because they find something they really like and use the same thing. That's kind of what I do. But feel free to experiment. The whole idea is to understand what you're doing so you can make changes, and then don't be afraid to move the lights around and do different things. So have fun.